this is what therapy looks like.
Yeah.
This is sometimes for some people, this is a good start to therapy. Sitting down and having conversations with men outside of what we normally converse about. There are men outside of our culture who, feelings and emotions and different things weren't a thing. And so, for us to just expect men to tap into their emotions now, it's almost like something new that we're walking into, where people are saying, it's okay for you to have emotions now, as if we weren't allowed to have them before.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Let's Rock Podcast. I am your host, Philosophical.
I'm your co-host, Jay Echo. What's up?
What's going on, everybody? As you can see, man, we have another great guest, on Mr. Robert Moore III, a father, man, proud believer in Jesus Christ, man. His motto is helping and growing and seeking God's purpose, a mental health advocate. And also, he is a host of his podcast, man. Great podcast, God's Glory in Men, Real Stories, man. Welcome, man.
Awesome. Hey, I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me today, guys.
Yeah, man. Really appreciate it, man. So we're gonna go ahead and start, man.
Yeah, let's do it.
We're gonna go ahead and start. Kind of the first question here is, why is there such an issue with showing emotion in men, right? And I know it could be abundance of things, a lot of things, right? A lot of it's been shown to have a sign of weakness, you know what I mean? Even, a fear of embarrassment, or maybe some sort of lack of discipline, right? And it also can be part of the healing and growing process. So let's speak on that a little bit. Why has it been such an issue with men showing emotions today?
Right. Well, I would say, to take this question even further back, was this even a question back then? I mean, like, let's go back 20 years. Was it even a question to ask a man, why isn't he showing emotion? Because right, Jay? I mean, like, it's almost like at one time, emotion and men didn't even go together. It wasn't a question. It wasn't like something that people said, hey, look, why don't you like tap into your emotions? Why don't you tell me how you feel? It wasn't a question that our fathers and our grandfathers even demonstrated. And, I know, because I look at my father and my grandfather, and, I talk to other friends, and they tell me, based on their culture, just not even our own culture, there are men outside of our culture who, feelings and emotions and different things weren't a thing. And so, for us to just expect men to tap into their emotions now, it's almost like something new that we're walking into, where people are saying, it's okay for you to have emotions now, as if we weren't allowed to have them before.
It is new. I mean, it's like I had this conversation with a couple coworkers like last year, I think it was. And the question they asked was, well, the question I was asked was, so why do you guys not feel like you should be sharing? And it's because, well, the contract we signed initially had nothing to do with emotion. And by the contract, I mean the social contract. Like, our job was go out, get food, get money, and bring it back home. If we were pissed off, if we were upset, whatever the case may be, you didn't show that. It was you gritted your teeth, you gutted it out, and then you just kept it pushing. And now we're realizing people are breaking down because there's only so much you can gut through before it all comes tumbling down.
I will say this. I think you made a good point as far as, like, having that. Your father never asked you, how you doing? You know what I mean? Never showed that love. And it made me think to where I feel like sometimes, man, it's like, my dad never asked me that either, right? My dad conditioned and taught me to, hey, make sure, you provide, right? You work as hard as you can to provide, no matter, what the circumstances are, you push through it as a man. That's our job as a man, right?
Right.
Don't show emotion, don't show feelings, right? Support your family at all times, provide for your family at all times. Don't let the world know that any sign of weakness.
Right.
And I feel like today, me being grown, an adult, and potentially being, a father to my child in the future, right? How do I break that chain? Right? How do I break that cycle? Right? And you made a good point also. I wanted to make a great observation. You were like, it's very hard for a man to show emotions and talk to people, but I think it's even harder to have that conversation with your father to say, oh, why didn't you? You know what I mean? Ask me how I was doing.
Well, I mean, think about it. He wasn't asked. Like a lot
Mm,
of what we
Yeah,
go
that's
through
true.
is due to what they received. A
okay.
person can't give you what they don't have or never had. So he can't ask you a question he was never asked.
Okay.
So to ask you how you're feeling, he would have to be taught that. And
Yeah,
Mm,
you
it's
don't know
now,
what you don't know.
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
correct. And so a lot of times we will go back and try to blame our parents, like, well, hey, look, why didn't you ever do
Yeah.
this? Or why didn't
Yeah.
you ever ask this? And a lot of times we need to recognize that a lot of our parents, right or wrong, they gave us what they had to give us. They gave us what they knew to give us.
Okay.
And so if they weren't aware that that's a value question that they should ask themselves,
Hmm.
they can't ask you, because if he asks you, what is he going to do with it if he doesn't know what to even do with the information?
So in your opinion, since we're on this topic and it seems like there's some similarities here, how do you feel like this cycle can be broken? Can it be repaired? Can it be,
Um, it definitely should be broken. It's not even a question of can it. It definitely can, but it requires people to get uncomfortable. And as I tell people,
mm,
it's in getting uncomfortable with things that you haven't done, that you've never experienced or you've never received, and stepping into it saying, okay, just because I haven't received it doesn't mean I can't do it, or I don't see the
mm,
importance of not doing it. I need to see the importance of why this is necessary. So it's in seeing the importance of why those are necessary questions, why it's necessary to not only look at your own emotions and feelings, but also
mhm,
want to understand how your children's are feeling, how they're processing their own emotion, what they're feeling when they go to school and when they're coming home.
mhm,
What's building up inside of them that you could possibly help them unload or unpack,
mhm.
instead of allowing them just to consistently go back and forth into every environment carrying these emotions and feelings that they don't know how to process.
So let's correlate that to relationships, right?
Okay.
So let's how because a lot of it is somewhat the same, right? Not asking potentially your child how they're doing, but also putting it into a relationship, right? And
Hmm.
even marriage and even dating, right?
Right.
Sometimes it's hard for we as people, maybe as men, to not only connect with the people we're with in relationships, but our friends, our mentors, even people that may need your word of advice, right? So let's speak on that. Let's speak on, do you feel like this is happening in relationships? And if it is, what are some things we can kind of do to correct this if people are going through this today?
um I will say this, for it to happen in a relationship, there has to be a sense of safety in that
Okay.
relationship in order for a
Okay.
man to just open up about things outside of, like think about it. When we first came on here, the first thing we jumped into was sports. Think about how
Mm.
easy it is for men to connect over sports. We can talk
Yeah, good
sports, we
point.
can talk
Early.
different things like that all day long.
Yeah.
But like, imagine the safety and the comfortable, I guess, just being comfortable enough to say, "Hey, man, how you feeling these days?" Like that's not a question that we normally, and the reason why some of us aren't comfortable doing that is because we don't even ask ourselves how we're doing these days.
Do you feel like because we put other people's feelings in front of ours? I feel like I feel like you're spot on with that because I did that. I did that
Yeah,
at one point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, and that rolls into like a thing of like sometimes putting other people's feelings, other people's how other people accept things, their acceptance of us before
Mhm.
ourselves.
Mm.
Um, and so when you're not doing the things that need to be done for you, sometimes it's hard to give that same thing to others, or you give it to others and you just say, I'm fine, I'm good, I don't need it, I'll be fine without it. And
So,
so it's a lack of providing yourself what you're hoping for from somebody else. Imagine if you were going out here in the world every day asking people, hey, how are you doing, and nobody ever asked you, how are you doing?
mm,
Just like think about that for a second. Like, wow, I'm asking this question in hopes that somebody will say, hey brother, how are you doing? And nobody ever asked me. It's just, people answering, hey, I'm good, or hey, I'm fine, or hey, no, I'm not good, or I'm gonna be okay. But nobody ever stops to say, how are you doing? Oh, wait a minute. Actually, I gotta go catch this bus. Or hey, you know what? Let me catch up with you next time. I gotta go get to this meeting.
yeah.
Good point.
So,
I oh, go
so
ahead, Jay.
what's it called? How to play sort of the counter argument to that? What do you have to say to people who say, oh, that willingness to take on other people's struggles on top of your own, that willingness
Mm.
to act,
Good
to
point.
ask while not being asked? What do you say to people who say that's just normal everyday leadership?
Mm, mm.
Ooh, that's good. And you know what? The truth, that is a great question. And the truth is that when it comes to leadership, leadership is not just being able to ask the right questions. Sometimes leadership is having the capacity to be able to sit with that person based on how they may answer. If you don't
Mhm.
have the capacity because you're already full, you have a lot of your own issues, you're bogged down with everything you're going through, then you may not have the capacity when that person says, I'm actually not doing good. I'm struggling with something. Do you have a moment to talk about that? And some people, their honest answer would be like, truthfully, I was just asking you because it was customary, as your manager, I just wanted to say, hey, how you doing? I was hoping you would just say I'm fine and just keep going.
Yeah.
Mm.
But it's having the capacity to be able to say, actually, if you're not fine, that's okay. And I actually have some time. I can cancel my next meeting. I can move some things around. Let's sit down. Let's go maybe grab a coffee or something. I
Mhm.
because the truth is that people invest in the company by coming to work there. When they put people in leadership, their investment is in the people that they're over.
Mm.
And so
Yep.
it's not just about getting things done. It's your job. In my opinion, I believe, and not to say that everybody may do this, not to say that you're wrong if you don't do it. I
Uh-huh.
personally feel that you should invest in the people that have been put in charge of,
Yeah.
by not only making sure that they can do the job, they have all the equipment, or they have the knowledge to do it, but also to make sure that their mental health, their emotional health, all these areas of their health are important. And it's not just in giving insurance. Well, you have insurance, sometimes it may put you in places where it's like, I'm not a therapist or anything, but like I have a great ear and I don't mind listening without necessarily offering advice.
Okay.
I'll just be here to listen.
So, do you feel like that's a main problem of us as men today, right? There used to be a quote, um, "Be ready to listen, not necessarily always ready to talk," right? Do you, do you feel like sometimes we as men we're not listening good enough as we should? Because I had to learn that the hard way. I feel like sometimes I'm so quick to help somebody by responding to the problem instead of listening to the problem.
Okay, so let's be real, and I'm sure every man is gonna agree with me on this. Like normally, yeah, I appreciate you, Jay. You got your hand up already. When we go into situations and people start, look, we really just want to fix it, man. Look, just what
Yes,
what
yes,
is it
yes.
like? Okay, what do you want me to fix? Like I am listening for the thought where you're like, and so what's wrong is that yeah, yes, give it to me. Just let me fix that instead of wanting to listen to actually hear them. As I tell
Okay.
people, there's a difference in being heard and being received. I think that it is important that we not only be in a place to be received by people, but also be in a place to listen without waiting our turn to say something, waiting our turn to fix it, waiting to pounce on whatever the problem is. As men, we like you said, it is our in our genetics almost to be to be gatherers, to be protectors, to be fixers.
Yes,
And
yes,
so we
yes.
are constantly ready to fix instead of just listening. Imagine if
Mm.
somebody told you, "Hey, look, the best fix is the fix where you stop and listen."
Mm.
It's funny that you say that. Like it's almost genetic because recently I've been listening to a lot of like neuroscience, psychology, that type of thing. And I was listening to this guy. He's an evolutionary psychologist, and he was talking about how men tend to bond with other people. And he was saying like they have done studies and it shows that while like women tend to bond because of things like, like sex, like closeness in a relationship, that type of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Men tend to bond when they are solving a problem with somebody. And this is
And
what an evolutionary psychologist said. And I sat there and I thought about it. And I was just like, okay. I even thought back to Phil, you and how you and my relationship just started,
yeah,
started, and how a lot of how it started was you just asking me questions and asking for advice about certain stuff, or
yeah.
me asking you for advice about certain stuff, and it's just like, okay, now we've been cool for at this
Uh,
point almost 10 years.
yeah, almost 10 years. I don't even think, I mean, everybody has their disagreements, but I feel like we've learned through those 10 years to be like, all right, I know how he's going to respond. I know how he's going to react. He knows how I'm going to react and vice versa and things like that. And I feel like sometimes, I think initially, the initial point is that we as men, including myself, we're so quick to be like, all right, what's the answer? Tell us the answer,
Yeah,
tell us the tell us the problem, and I feel like as a man, sometimes we feel empowered. That
yeah,
empowers us to feel like, all right, especially me working with IT, it's like, okay, what's the problem so I can get to fix it, so I can get to the next problem, right?
mhm,
And we as men would feel empowered by solving a number of problems that those number of problems we fix should bring solutions, right, to the overall problem, right?
mhm.
So that kind of gets into my next question, right?
Well, hold on. I got a
Oh,
question for you
go.
guys. And since you
Okay, go
guys
ahead.
said that, so in y'all's 10 years
Okay.
of getting to know each other and working together and things, how has your conversation? I mean, I know you guys have evolved around a problem, solving a problem, but
Yeah.
how have you guys evolved when it comes to being in each other's life in areas where it's like mentally, I am worn out, or it, family wise, I am stretched thin. How do you guys fall into each other's lives outside of just the podcast, outside of the problems? How is your interactors and relationships evolved in that 10-year span?
I will say this. And I'm glad you asked that because it made me think yesterday. And I didn't realize it until after we got off the phone. I feel like we're talking more, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
I feel like now when I call him, the first thing I ask him, and he can probably say, I've probably done this probably the last, even maybe before we started the podcast, but even now, the first thing I'll ask him when I call him, like, yo, you all right?
Yeah.
You good? You sound tired. You sound stressed. You want to talk
Oh
about it?
yeah. And I'm
You
I'm
know,
always tired and
you
I'm
know what I
always
mean?
stressed. So
And,
yeah.
and we weren't doing that before, right? We weren't
Right.
doing that before this podcast. It was always like, hey, what's up, man? What's going on? You good? Bye. Right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Like
so I got
and
a
crazy
question then for you,
happens.
Jay.
Huh?
Do you ever, so he says that he can always recognize you're tired and you're stressed. Do you
Yeah.
ever feel comfortable? Are you in that place where you can unpack with Phil, where you can talk about what's creating that space of
Uh
stress, why you're not maybe getting as much sleep?
uh yeah. Like before, like even now, I'm not really a person who shares as much. I'm an introvert, so that's not my default. But Yeah, initially, I think we both can attest to the fact that I wasn't really sharing too much about what I was going through, what was going on, different things. Like there are still certain things that I'll say to Phil, and he'll be like, "You never told me about that." I'll be like, "Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that happened."
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
But it's like, yeah, as especially like you said through the podcast and coming to terms with the fact that like, okay, I haven't been willing to be vulnerable with people, with myself, with the situations I find myself in to share, like being in that place, having to be in that place for this podcast has forced me to be in that place outside of it,
mm,
like you
Right.
were sort of unintentionally inflicting change upon one another. If
Right.
and
yeah,
I will add to that. I feel like sometimes I think now the role between me and Jay have reversed. I feel like now he calls me and asks me like, "What's your opinion on this? What's your opinion on that?"
yeah,
And
definitely.
before, like me, I'm an extrovert. I'm very go getter. I'm a go getter. I'm like, let's go. Let's attack this right now. Let's go. And I used to call him and be like, "Hey Jay, what do you think about this?" He'd be like, "Wait, let's slow down for a second." You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Let's hold on, hold your horses. And he would ask me questions, and I would get so annoyed. I'm like, "Why is he asking me all these questions?" Like, but I didn't have an answer for him, right? So
Mm.
now I think that I'm thankful for that because it's like, all right, it's teaching me to like I can't just go, 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 go. I gotta be like, all right, let me think this through a little bit. Let me get through. And I got that from him. But I feel like now, I think within the past year, he sees kind of the transition and change in me. So he now calls me and be like, "Hey man, what do you think about this? Right? What do you think about that? What are your thoughts on this? I'm a little unknown in this area. What do you think?" And I'll tell him, I'll be real with him, and I think he appreciates me because I'm real with him. I'll tell him the truth, like, and he always jokes with
Off
me.
a
I'll say,
couple
"Jay,
times, I'll say that.
yeah," I always joke with him. It's like, "Jay, I ain't trying to hurt your feelings, man. I'm just
I'm
trying to
not,
be,
it's never intentional, but
yeah."
you have this idea in your head and you're just like, oh, I know I got it. And then it's just like, you're wrong, bro. Oh, well, you're right. Yeah, I'm wrong.
you
It is
know,
what
and I'm okay. I'm okay now. I'm more okay with that being wrong, or even feeling like, all right, I'm giving out the best advice based off of my experience, right? And even asking him, like, man, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And he'll ask me questions, and I got answers for him now. So it's like, it's been a good balance now, and I feel like that it's attributed to not only within our friendship, what I mean, being able to hang out more. We're communicating more because I would always have to put an ABB out on Jay. Like, where you at, man? Like, where?
Just missing.
So
He kind of isolates himself, and next thing you
yeah,
know,
he
it's like you got to go
isolate.
find him in isolation.
I gotta go find him in isolation, man. And now it's like, hey, man, what's going on? He'll call me sometimes, like, hey, what's going on? You all right? What's going on? What's the plan? How are things? So I appreciate that, man, and I feel like that's what's missing in a lot of men that maybe didn't grow up with a father or didn't have a male best friend or aren't surrounded by the right circle, right? So I do feel like I do value the friendship and value this podcast and him as a person and who he is, because man, we bounce off each other, right? And that's
Yeah,
just the way it's been. I appreciate that.
that's important. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's good.
yeah,
That's
right back
good.
at you, brother.
yeah. So I appreciate that question. I appreciate that question, man. No one's ever asked that,
Yeah.
before. So yeah. Um,
Yeah.
so that kind of goes into the next question as far as like, people pleasing, right?
Mm.
I feel like we as men we mix feelings and emotions, and we spoke about a couple minutes ago as far as like we appease to certain people, appease to certain things people want, things people feel like they need, right?
Hmm.
And so it's just let's speak on that, right?
Yeah. Well, I I personally, being a recovering people pleaser,
Yeah.
um, I know there are some people that say, yeah, but no, like people pleasing is not necessarily a bad thing. It's being selflessness. It's
Okay.
creating a space to be able to help people. And so being a recovering people pleaser doesn't mean that I pivot from that and I'm like, no, I'm not helping you anymore. No, it's not. No, it's checking in with me to make
Okay.
sure that I have the capacity to really be able to. It's almost like I had a good friend of mine, grew up with him.
Mm-hmm.
He reached out to me and said, hey, look, man, I'm getting married. I would like to see if you would be one of my groomsmen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, normally most guys are just like whether they have the capacity, whatever, they could literally be going through all type of life issues. And just like, sure, dude, I like, why not? Of course. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how could I tell you no? But I reached back out and I said, hey, look, I would love to, but I just need to understand what all that would require, what
Okay.
that would look like. What
Mhm.
what
Okay.
what will you need from me? And I feel like those are important questions to sometimes ask people to understand if you have the capacity. And
Well. Let me. Not to cut you off. I wanted to ask that. Right? Was it kind of playing a little devil's advocate with that because you're on that point? I wanted to ask this. Right? Was it you wanted to answer those questions, or was it one of those questions where you were like, "Why are you choosing me?"
no,
Is
no,
there
no,
a
no,
reason?
not
Is
not
there?
not not at all. I mean, like
Oh, okay. Okay.
it's not even about why are you choosing me, but hey,
Okay.
look, am I going to have the capacity to actually give you what your expectations are? Because you know how
Gotcha.
sometimes when people ask things of you, they have a certain expectation, and not that it
Okay.
may always meet those expectations. At
Okay.
least now we can talk about what you're going to need from me. Are you going to need me to throw you a bachelor party? Or are you going to need
Okay.
me to show up a
Okay.
couple days early?
I
Like,
see
like,
what you're
like,
saying.
how much is the tuxedo? And is this
Okay.
a rented tuxedo or am I buying this tuxedo? Do I have the funds to buy a tuxedo? Like those are important questions just to
Okay.
before you're down and out and you don't have any money, but yet now you got to rent a tuxedo that costs $300 and you don't want to tell him no now, but like you're sitting there at the wedding, like, well, I've been eating hot dogs and beans for like 15 weeks now, just so I can be here. And it's like,
Yeah.
and it's like, it is important to sometimes not overextend yourself
Okay.
to please others, because as I have
Ah.
heard, when you're a friend to everybody, you have abandoned and an enemy to yourself.
Okay.
Um,
I definitely agree. I'm glad you made that point to not overextend yourself. I didn't know. I mean, now I understand what that means, right? But before I didn't know what that meant, right? And I'm glad I asked that question because those type of questions I would look to say, why are you choosing me, right? What expectation are you expecting of me? Does it fit your expectation? And if it is, what's the reason that you're choosing me to fill that expectation, right? Do you see something in me that I don't see in myself, right?
Mm.
So I feel like, and I'm glad I asked that question. I apologize again for cutting you off, but
No,
it
no,
was
no,
just
no.
it was just one of those things where I felt like this person sees something in me that I'm not seeing for myself,
Mm.
and
right?
but
And that's the and my thoughts on that was that it's usually the other way around, right? I'm asking, like for example, we spoke a couple minutes ago, like just for hypotheticals. If I asked Jay, like, "Hey, how you doing?" It was almost as if I'm looking for an answer that is different from the regular general reaction he usually gives me. Why? Because I see a certain reaction from someone else, right? Because I'm always looking to please. I'm always looking to help others. I'm always looking to overextend myself to others. But
Right.
sometimes when someone asks you, right, of something from you, it's it's almost a defense mechanism to say, why are you choosing me? Why are you asking me this? Are you seeing something in me that I'm not seeing for myself?
And I was just about to say to that. Now that's not necessarily people pleasing.
Okay.
Sometimes when you don't see why others may choose you or why others may like find you, like, hey, look, we want to promote you. We feel like you, but wait, why me? What is it? Sometimes that's an area of I don't see what you guys see, and it could be low
Okay.
self-esteem. It could be an unworthiness, and these are all traits of things that a lot of people pleasers, they will do the most because they
Okay.
don't see worthiness. They don't see themselves as worthy. They don't see themselves as being able to give themselves what they need from these people by pleasing them. And
Okay.
pleasing them, I make everybody happy. And pleasing them, I get validation, and I get this facade of love sometimes, even if it's not real. I'll take it, like, because in making everybody else happy, people sometimes say, if everybody else is happy, then I'm happy. But
Yep.
I,
Yep.
I
Yep. Yep.
I would say that can't be
That's not
true,
true happiness.
because if everybody else is happy, then that means at a certain point you had to be something different for everybody else, which means you haven't actually been yourself. Because yourself, you show up every week to hang out with your friends at a particular place you eat, but you hate the food there, but yet
Mhm.
you'll continue to show up.
But it's
Never have you said, I hate the food there.
but it's
Um,
happening. Believe it or not, it's happening in relationships. It's
Most
ha-
definitely.
it's happening in marriages. It's happening,
Most definitely.
on the job. It's
happening all
happening.
the time.
It's happening all the time. And for me, I think it's one of those things where it's like, I think it comes down to people are willing to please other people before pleasing themselves. So it's one of those things where it's like when someone is seeing something in you that you're not seeing for yourself, because you're so conditioned and accustomed to pleasing, giving that same effort and energy that you're getting for yourself, but to somebody else, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Okay.
And I get what you're saying. I totally
Mhm.
get what you're saying. But think about this, though. And I always use this analogy.
Okay.
Think about it. Whenever you get on an airplane and they go over the different things, your belt buckle, make sure if you have to put the floating device on, pull down on the handle. Then they
Mhm.
say, hey, look, if the overhead drops down and the mask drop down, they don't say please your neighbors by putting on their mask first. No, they say put your mask on first,
Correct.
then
Yes, true.
assist your neighbor. The reason
Uh,
why they're saying that is because they recognize is that if you can't help anybody if you don't help yourself. You can't pour into others if you don't pour into you. The same goes for love. You can't
Mhm.
love others, if you don't love yourself. And that starts in the Bible. A lot of us skip over that, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. It
So
starts with loving yourself so that you can love your neighbor.
So why is that why do you feel, in your opinion, you can answer this too, Jay? Why do you feel like that's such a hard thing in today's society, especially with men, to love themselves and
uh,
I'll let you go first, Jay.
okay. I think it goes back to the comment I made a little bit earlier about like we want to solve problems, and we get that essentially we're pleasing, like you said about oh, I get multiple issues on the job and I solve those to solve the larger problem. It's that
Mhm.
same mindset, right? It's like, okay, the more people I help, the larger impact I have, so to speak. And that's true, but it's also, it can be a detriment, like you were saying, Robert, like if you're trying to help everybody but you haven't helped yourself, then there's, if I'm trying to feed multitudes and I haven't eaten, halfway through trying to feed the multitude, I'm gonna collapse from hunger. And then at that point, I haven't helped nearly the number of people that I thought I could, because I wasn't prepared, or I wasn't in the state I needed to be in to achieve at the highest level I could.
Mhm.
And I think it goes down to like we've been talking about. If we haven't done the work beforehand to say, all right, this is what I need in order to do what you're asking, what you're expecting of me. The question you're asking your friend about being about, hey, I'm gonna be your groomsman, but what are your expectations? It's like, okay, my capacity right now, and uh a friend of mine, I'm sorry, a previous relationship of mine, she put it this way. She was like, okay, I have so many spoons in a day, and once I'm out of spoons, I'm not doing anything else. I can't give anything else to anybody. I can't do anything else for anybody. I'm not, even if I want to, I'm not capable of giving more after my spoons are gone.
Mm.
So if you're using your spoons to fill somebody else's cup and you run out of spoons, you can't fill anybody else. So if you've done the personal work, if you've laid the groundwork to, hey, this is the number of spoons I have, yes, but also the work I'm doing has increased the number of spoons I have because I've taken care of myself. I've learned, I've grown. You know, you grow, your capacity grows with you.
Mm.
So at that point, and I think taking it to relationships, Phil, like you were saying, we wonder why women seem to be asking for, we feel like women are asking for more in relationships, and it's not that women are asking for more, it's that they're asking and we're realizing we don't have to provide. And it's like, well, nobody's never expected this of me, and I don't have it to give. So stop asking. As opposed to, nobody's ever expected this of me. Let me grow my capacity so I can give this to you. You know, and I think that's a mindset that we can take into whatever avenue you're moving in, whether it's professional, whether it's personal, whether it's,
but a lot of men don't want to.
whatever.
A lot of men don't want to say they don't have the capacity in a relationship.
No. Nobody wants to admit that they can't do something, but
correct.
It goes back to, you know, that vulnerability and what leadership actually looks like. Yeah. Or at least that's my opinion, and I'd love to hear you guys' thought.
Or ego.
That too. That too.
Go ahead, Robert.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. I was sitting in here listening to you guys. I think that it starts with the question of what am I getting out of pleasing everybody? And when you ask yourself, what are you getting out of pleasing everybody? Most people will realize that what they're actually getting, if they really sit with themselves and realize that what I'm getting from these people, I could probably give myself. A lot of people would probably sit back and say, okay, so if I can give myself the validation that I'm looking for from these people, if I can give myself the love that I'm looking for from these people, then why am I going so hard to please everybody, to be somebody different, only to get to the end? I have pleased everybody, but I don't know who I am. And that's really my story. You know, when you get to the end and one day look and say, oh, okay, I have become somebody for everybody. The problem is that the characters that I play, I've run out of room to add any more characters in this closet. I have hit my capacity of characters. I am a different character for every organization, every group, every job, every friendship clique that I have. And I've lost it now. And I don't even remember who I am anymore. And it's because I was too busy trying to please everybody and be what everybody needed me to be that I lost myself. I abandoned myself. And so what do you keep doing? Do you just keep like, well, I'll just keep playing these roles? I feel like that's one of the biggest signs and showings of I don't love me. I love everybody else, but I don't love me though.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Good point. Good point.
Yeah,
that actually, that actually kind of goes to the next question too. Why are we looking for peace in the wrong places?
Peace. Ooh, wow. Well, okay. So understand. There's a big difference in the peace. Everybody, my definition of peace and how I look at peace and how others look at peace may be two different things, because this world offers a sense of peace that is similar to happiness. Happiness is what's happened to you in the moment. So happiness
Mhm.
is only built on, hey, look, if I just won $100, I am happy right now based on what has just happened. If
Mhm.
all of a sudden I get a bill when I get home for $90, my $100 is now $10. I am no longer happy. Look how quick
Yeah.
that happiness went away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Peace is similar. The world offers peace when sometimes our kids are picked up by our parents. I could just get peace for a second. Or, hey, look, I have the day off. I'm going to try to find peace, or I'm going to on vacation to get that peace and tranquility there. And I have to go to these uh extravagant places to obtain peace. And what I have learned is that, okay, I want a peace that's not based on where I'm at, what's happening. I want the peace that Jesus offered before he left, when he was talking to his disciples in John 14:27, when he
Yeah.
was talking about, peace is what I leave you with. But the peace that Jesus was talking about was the peace that he was experiencing when he was sitting in the boat. And I mean, the boat, he was with the disciples, and the boat was
Yeah.
going crazy.
Yeah.
And yet he
Yeah.
sat in the boat and he was sleeping. Now imagine being on a cruise and waves are hitting the cruise and you're falling all out of your bed. Imagine finding peace in that. Most of us wouldn't be able to. Most of us would be like, okay, you know what? I want my money back. I did not expect to be falling out my bed in the middle of the night of a cruise. You know, it's in finding peace in situations when everything is going on around you. When you have your kids yelling at you on one hand, when your job is yelling at you, when your wife is yelling at you, when everything is falling apart in the world, but yet you still are experiencing the peace that God said he was leaving us with. And I you know what, let me pull that up real quick. I think it's John 14:27, where God says, peace, uh, peace leaves with you. My peace I give to you, not as the world gives, do I give to you. Let your heart not be troubled, neither let it be afraid. And so, what he's letting us know is that it's even in those moments where most people would say, I don't even know how you're doing it right now. Like, how are you making it through this? How is, I heard
Yep.
about everything, somebody told me as we were gossiping about you, about all the things you're going through. I don't know how you're doing it. And it's in those moments where most people would say, you're right. I don't either. I can't find peace. But it's
Yeah.
when you recognize that Jesus gives us a peace that may not make sense to others, but it's in those moments where it's like, I'm at peace right now with this. I'm at peace with everything that's going on. I'm at peace with the fact that, I just found out that I have cancer, or I'm at peace that I just found out that my parents are dying. It's finding peace in those things, even when most people wouldn't be able to find it. And that's the peace that I seek. I feel like that's the peace that a lot of people would want and would trade in their peace in exchange for, to say, oh no, look, that'll save me a bunch of money. Instead of going to Bali or somewhere, I'm gonna stay here and receive the peace of God in the situations that are right here at home. Sign me up. I want that.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
the peace I seek.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people can kind of relate to the fact that I tried to search for peace through other people, other things. But slowly I started to understand and realize that those things and even those people are temporary, right? And it all boils down and comes back to having to put yourself first, right? So at a point of your life, I feel like you have to sit yourself down and understand, what do you need in your life to bring you that peace? Not necessarily things, not necessarily people, but what environment do you need to be in to say, no matter what's going on in my life right now, this is where I'm at my most peacefulness, right? And I'm glad you brought that analogy with happiness, because that was another indication of measuring my way of happiness through, again, things and people, right? And those things are temporary. Um, so as a man, it's like we are conditioned to, basically work as machines, right? Basically, you provide, you work, you don't talk, you don't say anything, right? But when life transitions into a different perspective that you're not used to, that is different than what you're dealing with currently in your life, right? I feel like that's, in my opinion, right? That's peace, right? Because it's a sigh of relief that what you dealt with a time before, you're now not dealing with that anymore, right? You're in a place, you're in a relationship, you're kind of at peace with yourself. And that was something that, you know what I mean, I had to think about very carefully, right?
But yeah.
How can I put myself first? What do I need? Not only to bring a peaceful environment within my household through me, but also with my partner, with my job, with my personal life. In my opinion, I feel like all those things are important to understand. And we and we spoke about this a couple times now, right? And in fact, this was one of our very first conversations, right? And Jay is laughing because I can tell this is probably one of our very first episodes that we spoke about. What is peace, right? And we would also say that peace is who you let in your life and the things that are going on in your life. And I'm just so glad to be able to elaborate on putting yourself first, right? Understanding what makes you happy during those happenings, right? And I'm glad you made that analogy because I'm probably gonna really dig deep and dive into that. Go ahead, Jay. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jay. Go ahead.
Just to add on to what you guys are saying, like to take it back to scripture, what's the command that Jesus used to calm the waters? It was peace, be still. And
good point.
Like everything you guys are talking about is about, oh, let me find this place, let me find this thing, let me find this whatever, this random external stimulus to bring me peace. But when you can be still and be okay, getting to that place where it's like, okay, I'm like me right now. I'm sitting in my house. Nobody else is around. It's quiet, and I'm good. I'm okay. Like I'm not hurting for anything. I'm not wanting for anything. Yes, there are still goals I have. Yes, there are still things that I'm striving to achieve. Yes, there are still tasks I need to complete. But it's like I'm okay.
But how long does that peace last, though? Like when everybody comes back, is the peace gone?
that part. That's the thing.
And see that, and that's kind of what I was saying. And that, like we say, well, hey, look, if we find the right woman or the right man, we'll achieve peace. Listen to me.
But it's
I have not, and hey, look, don't fall for the hype. I don't care how great the woman or the man in your life is. There are going to be times where you guys don't see eye to eye. There are going to be times where you don't agree or disagree. And sometimes the conversation around it may produce like, oh, I got to go into work with this now. I tell people I find the most peace. And I mean, I was just thinking about this. If a person was to ask me, well, where do you go? Or where do you find your peace at? I find the most peace in worship. And I can worship. I can put in earbuds right now and be in God's presence in the next 0.5 seconds to find peace there. I can find my peace in meditating on the word. I like to meditate a lot. And that there is, and even there, it's like, okay, but yeah, when you're done meditating, everything else pours back in. No. See, understand. Even I never stopped everything to meditate. I just use that opportunity to be able to calm things regardless of what's happening. So no, I think I truly believe that peace is not up to what's going on around us, who we bring into our lives, all those different things. Peace is more of what we're experiencing internally, how
Okay.
we are feeling regardless of everything that's going on around us.
Mm.
And or who we brought into our circle, because you may have seen in a clip I made recently, we're too busy trying to protect our peace.
Yep.
Everybody, I don't know what song it was. I think it was who was it was, it was talking about protecting your peace. And so, we ran with that line, I got to protect my peace. I can't allow you to come into this space. Or no, I got to. But
Yeah.
see, the thing is,
Yeah.
I don't have to protect what God freely gives me.
Yeah.
It didn't come with a protection plan. It didn't come with like, hey, look, if it doesn't work out right, just bring it back to the store, or let me know. Like, no, I can freely receive that peace no matter what's going on, regardless who I'm with, regardless how bad things are and how bad the storm is, because I want to sit right next to Jesus and experience the same peace that allowed him to sleep when that boat was just like being tossed all over the place.
Yeah. Wow, that's actually a good point. That's actually you had something to add, Jay?
No, I was just looking it up, and I Googled protect my peace, and the first thing that came up was
Kendrick Lamar.
17 ways to protect your peace.
I have a
And the
course. I have a
next,
master course. If you follow me, I can help you protect your peace.
yep. And the next thing that came up was an Ashley Taylor song. So it's
Okay.
I didn't know. I have to look. I think Kendrick Lamar did
I
say that.
Kendrick Lamar did have a line or something like that, talking about protect my peace or something like that. It could have
Okay,
been, but like,
I think it
yeah.
was in the Rich Spirit song.
And don't get me wrong,
Yeah, yeah.
this worldly, this society's peace that they offer. Well, yeah, you got to protect that. Now that you have to protect. That's
Okay.
true.
Yeah.
So let me not
Yeah.
downplay that when what they're saying, what they're talking about, you do have to protect that. Like,
Yeah. Are you speaking in terms of who you let in your circle, who you associate with? Or are you kind of elaborate
yeah,
on that one?
all of that, like
Okay.
what job you take,
Yeah.
who you allow to come around you. Wait, who's gonna be there?
Yeah.
Nah, I
Yeah.
can't go there because they
Yeah.
always love to rub me the wrong way. That's me
Yeah.
protecting my peace right there.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
of those things are ways that you're trying to protect what we and don't get me wrong, we I believe we are selective. We create boundaries that say, hey, look, I don't want to do that. I don't want to, but it's not necessarily about peace. It's just about the fact, impersonally, it's about the fact that I just don't want to do that anymore. I
Yeah.
mhm,
don't care to be
Yeah.
around those people. I'm not
And,
protecting it. I'm just selective.
and that's
mhm.
okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
Most people have a problem with that because you don't want to do that anymore. And I was just was saying, sometimes you get to a point that's growth. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? When you
That's
get
no
to a
longer
point,
people pleasing.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's growth. So I'll get to the next question here as far as like tell us some ways of really putting that work in. You know what I mean? We mentioned meditation, worshiping, studying the word. We spoke a little bit on that on this show to where, I feel like that's kind of the next step. I know for me personally, meditating and really diving deeper into the word. But kind of tell us from your perspective on some things that, in your opinion, we as
Right.
men need to work on. Should be put the work on, put the work
Well,
in.
I
I'm sorry.
like to cater my message to everybody because I understand that there are some non-believers, and I don't want to just cornhole this to say, well, hey, if you're a non-believer, I have nothing for you. No,
Right.
see, I am definitely big in the mental health space as well as the spiritual health space. I
Mm-hmm.
understand why both of them are equally important, but I also understand that some people are just not looking for that relationship or that walk with God that I am on, as
Mm-hmm.
well as on my mental health journey. So for those who are like just looking for, especially men, because that's where I am called to. I am called to men in this season of my life
Mm-hmm.
to walk alongside men and some of the journeys and the different things that they're on. I talk to men very often, and I sincerely want to help men on their own journeys because I'm on my journey. And that I realize it's important for us to sit with ourselves, something that a lot of us are scared to do.
Mm-hmm.
Sit with
Mm-hmm.
ourselves to start asking ourselves some of the hard questions, especially when you're dealing with depression, anxiety. instead of just like it'll go away. Like, why don't you sit with yourself to understand why it's here in the first place? A lot of us will go to the doctor. We'll do all kind of stuff if we have a fever, but depression, anxiety, they're just an internal fever. And a lot of times fevers are a way of working out what's going on inside your body. Thing is you have to work out what's happening internally. You have to sit with it. You have to ask those questions of like, okay, why am I feeling this way? What is it that has brought this on? What is it that I'm avoiding, or maybe I fear right now that I don't want to face because I just feel like it's too much. I don't know if I have the capacity to take it on. But the thing is that I would tell you, whether you make the capacity today or whether eventually the capacity or whether everything shuts down in your factory, your body, your mind shuts down in the future, you're going to have to eventually face it. And I would rather you face it now than it be so big. You look at the tidal wave of everything you have avoided and feel like I would rather give up, because I'm tired of seeing brothers giving up. I'm tired of seeing brothers feel like I didn't have any other choice. I really don't want to see that for another brother. I don't want to see that for any man or woman. But I know a lot of times men get to that point where we're just like, I'm gonna tap out now. And I know that because I got to that point. And
So did I.
yeah.
So did I, yeah.
And so it regardless, it then makes you sit down. It makes you sit down. And at that point, you realize that, okay, either I'm going to, and it's not going to be an easy pick me up, but I'm going to take this step by step, even if that's just, I'm going to get up and I'm going to take a shower. And then I may go sit back down, and that might be all I do today. Great. I'm going to get up. I'm going to go and take a walk today. As I think about what's going on in my world, how I crashed like I did. But I just beg a man to say, like, listen, I promise you, you would be surprised how many men, notice how I said I got to that point where I was ready to give up. And both of you said, yes, so did I. You'd be surprised how many men that is, think about it. Randomly, all three of us said, so did I. Yeah. Think about how many other men around you are feeling that exact same way or have felt that exact same way that would be like, bro, I've been there. And not so much that I have advice for you right now, because what I had to do helped me out of my funk. It may not work for you, but know that I'm going to be here to listen to you. If nothing else, I'm going to be here to walk alongside you. I'm going to be here to call you and encourage you today. I'm going to be here to call you and check on you. Hey, you want me to drop by some food? Hey, bro, let's take a walk. We ain't got to talk about nothing. Let's just take a walk. Men need other men to walk alongside them. So many of times we are looking for women to be in our lives to do that for us and different things. And the truth is that community doesn't always look like wives, girlfriends, women, sisters. Sometimes it's us having the capacity to say, brother, I know we normally talk sports. I know we normally talk finances. We know, but like, I can't even focus on those things outside of all the stuff that's on my mind right now. And if you have the capacity, I'd like to just maybe just like unpack just a little bit of this stuff. And it may not be popular to you, but like, I don't have anybody else to unpack with. And I have the capacity for that. I don't want to hear about another. I don't have to know you. I don't want to hear about another brother who couldn't find that space with anybody around them. Reach out to me. I got the capacity.
And I feel like, I'm glad you brought that point, is that the first step is that the first issue I feel like is that we as men feel like we're not vulnerable enough to say, hey, do you have the capacity to hear what I'm going through right now? And I feel like that's one of the things I think that's part of ego. That's a little bit of pride to say, hey, yo, I just need somebody to talk to for a few minutes. Like we spoke about a little earlier, as far as like, you're talking to your boss. Do you have a few minutes to kind of speak on some things I got going on right now? Why? Right?
Why don't we do that? Why can't we do that?
Well, I'm speaking in hypotheticals to where I think why we don't do that is because I feel like there's a sense of potential judgment,
Oh
right?
yeah.
How is
There's
the
fear.
person? Yes, fear, correct. How is the person going to respond? They can respond to where, man, either I've been there, like we've said, and this is how you navigate out. Hey, if you ever need somebody to talk to, we're here. You know, don't no judgment free zone. Or it can go left to where, like, man, come on, man, you're better than this. You shouldn't feel this way. You shouldn't have to go through that. You shouldn't have to. It's almost like you shouldn't be talking to me about this. You should be
What
talking to me
about your
about,
kids? What about your
yeah,
family? What are they
yeah,
going to do? Like, oh man, yeah, that's
yeah.
and that's some of the most harmful things you could do to a man in the midst of that, because
You
you
shut
make it
them
about
down.
everything else.
Yeah,
You
you
make it
shut
about
them down.
everybody else,
Yeah,
and
I
never
get
did you
it.
say, but you matter. Like
Yeah,
even without them, like you still matter. Like let's
yeah,
not make this about everybody else.
yeah,
How are you doing?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
what because like I said, it's a capacity thing. You don't know this, but I'm going through the same thing.
Yep,
And so
yep.
that's the advice I keep giving myself when that may not be helpful to you.
Correct, correct. Because a lot
Mhm.
of times there are instances where we just want to be heard, right?
Yeah,
We
but
just want to be listened to. But go ahead, Jay.
I mean it. I'll speak to, my own experience. You go through the world feeling like you're, again, for a very long time I subscribed to stoicism.
Okay.
And I didn't realize that that's what it was until somebody recently was like, "Yeah, you're very stoic," and I was just like, I just keep my stuff to myself. I didn't really think there was a name for it. You just take it one step at a time and you figure it out. But that's the perception people have of me because I don't share. So I realized, like, oh, the reason people think I'm good is because they don't hear me say anything. They don't see me
Mm,
struggle. And the reason they don't is because that's what I was taught. I was taught, like, okay, my struggle is my own. And even if you do reach out, all you'll face is judgment. So why bother reaching out? Right.
yeah.
It's like, all
Okay.
right, I don't need that. But especially considering, like, one more perceived judgment, one more perceived rejection, one more perceived slight, it's like that's the thing that's going to break me. And all I'm doing right now is pushing through. So I'm not gonna do that.
Well,
But
I hold on. I got to ask you this then, Jay. Tell me something. If right now somebody was to come to you and say, "Hey, look, congratulations, you and your family just won a brand new home and a car," would your stoicism still have you just like, "Thank you, I appreciate that. Like, that's awesome. That's
so
great.
the
I was
funny
actually."
thing is, yes.
No, because look, I'm looking at the smile on your face right
So
now. So
so
see,
there's a
like,
difference between, so I'll still smile, I'll still, like, and I think that's where people, when I say stoicism, I don't mean lack of emotion. I
okay,
mean, it never appears like I'm going through stuff.
right.
Meanwhile, the people who know me. They know, like, oh no, he's not in a good place right now. He's just not saying it because he's not going to say it.
Right. Right.
And, like, for instance, I I I I got a house recently, right? And
Congratulations.
thank
Yeah.
you. But most of the people in my office didn't know because there wasn't really a change in my day to day. There wasn't really a change in my, meanwhile, on the inside, I'm sitting there just like, I got a new house. I'm celebrating. I'm dancing a little bit inside, just like, oh yeah, mom. But everybody at the office is just like, oh yeah, you what's it called? Yeah, because at the office it's just like, this is my job. I do my job, I go home, and I keep it pushing. But I know for me, especially, like part of the reason for that is, like we've been saying, like that fear of judgment, that fear of exposure, that lack of
Yeah.
trust, where it's like, I don't want to put myself out there because this pain is mine, this joy is mine, this celebration is mine. You know, it's like, I don't want to share this with other people for fear that it will get thrown back in my face, whatever it is, because I lack that trust. And not only do I lack that trust, I lack that, I'm still building that stability within myself, where it's like, even if you do throw it in my face, that doesn't change the fact that, guess what, I'm good. You know, I still, like you were talking about, that peace is still there, regardless of what the outside world is doing, regardless of the slings, the arrows, or whatever the case may be. I still have that. And that's a skill that I'm building right now, and I'm well aware of that. But you know, there are a lot of people, like I said, myself included, who haven't built that, who don't have that. So the idea of, I'm going through something right now, let me see if other people are, it's like, nah, I don't like, I don't have the capacity to even see that other people may be going, maybe are going, or have gone through the same things that I'm going through.
It sounds like you got a response, Robert.
I'm
Yeah, I
waiting
was
for
just
it.
about to say, wow, yeah, yeah, and you know what, bro, wow, um, yeah, I would tell you that in time, I hope that you can kind of work through that, because you know I would think that was your initial question. What can men do?
Yeah.
It is important that you work. It I tell people, just knowing about yourself, just recognizing it is not the word. That's just recognizing it, and it will dead end at that if you just want to keep it at that.
Mm-hmm.
It's in doing the work to unpack why that is, to unpack, do I care to continue to be this way and live this way and keep this, like I tell people, just as much as you come to me and tell me I want a big house and a car, not that I care about any of those things, but at one time in my life, if that would have meant something to me, because I'm sure it would have, then I would have just been like overjoyed. I mean, I would have been like
Yeah.
every other person that just won something big. I'm going to run down the street and do all the antics.
Yeah.
But then if you come to me and tell me that my best friend's son died, I'm just like, okay, well, man, I'm really sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
And then maybe go inside, go to my room, take a shower, and I cry in the shower. I'm not going to bottle that stuff up anymore. I'm going to if I'm going to express and showcase my happy and my joy and everything else, I'm going to allow the sadness, the anger, the hurt to pour over me the same way. And if that means I got to cry in front of a bunch of men in front of at my job, then I'm going to do that, because I'm going to process my feelings in the moment. And yes, I
Yeah.
could probably wait. I could wait and say, hey, look, right now, maybe this is not the place, because this is a funeral and I have to be strong for people. But like, I'm not being strong for myself by bottling that up and trying to keep it together for other people who may judge me, who may say you weren't strong enough. Man, I was strong enough, because it was in me allowing myself to cry. It was in me allowing myself to have a moment that showed my strength. That is where your strength is. It's not in keeping it together and holding yourself strong, because eventually you'll realize your strength will run out in
I,
doing that for prolonged time.
I and I feel like it also, and I'm glad we're having this conversation, because it when like if you or Jay would come to me and let's say the happiest thing happened or the saddest thing happened, right? I think there's a level of, you're building a certain level of trust. You're building a certain level of sympathy, empathy, that it is there in men, but it's rarely shown.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like those are signs of people that you can allow into your circle, into your life, into being able to trust people, you know, with certain information. And I feel like what, and maybe I'm wrong, what Robert's trying to say, Jay, is that maybe sometimes that the line of happiness versus the line of sadness you may feel, instead of feeling like you're bottling it in because you can't trust other men, I think it's because partially the men you've trusted previously have given you, you know, bad signs initially, and it's shut you down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like for me, I'm learning to, you know, and we spoke about it throughout the show, to where, you know, I'm no longer putting you know, my happiness or the way I view happiness or the way I, you know, want to feel peace or display peace, putting that sole responsibility on my wife, on my friends, on like my family, right? I want it to initially start with me, right? How do I feel? What makes me happy, right? But for me, I'm in a different place to where, like, if I bought a brand new house and a brand new car, I'm happy to a point where it's like, you know, my wife is happy. You know what I mean? You know, we got a future together. We don't have to struggle anymore. Um, but I can display that to her, right? I can display that with very close friends. I can display that with family, right? Not necessarily saying that you can't do that or to show it off, but sometimes, man, like, to show the world that it's about you, you've got to show the world that you're not gonna be conditioned to act in a certain way the world tells you to act, right? To not feel anything. And I feel like sometimes we as men, we're told to, a little ounce of happiness, we're supposed to accept that the way it is, and go accept that, when really you should want to display your happiness with people, right? Because that brings a certain, for me, like, and I've spoke about that, right? When I'm talking to somebody and I feel like my story resonates with them and they feel a certain way that they can come and talk to me, that makes me happy. That makes me feel good because I can trust people. They can trust me. We can build a conversation. We can learn from each other. You know what I mean? We can display as men um a lot of the, you know, generational curses that's been placed down on men forever.
But hold on. Notice how you said that it took me to display that to him in
Yeah.
order for him to feel comfortable. See,
Yeah.
the thing is that I think Jay even said it. I would never just walk up to a stranger and just start talking about things that I'm going through. Why? One, because I don't know the person, and then two, because I don't know how they're going to, you know, what they're going to say back or how they're going to receive it.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I have noticed is that when a person can come, like Phil just said, and say, "Hey, look, these are things I'm going through. This is how I'm processing it." What they're doing is they're creating a safe space for
Yeah.
people who don't
Yeah.
even know them, because I am experiencing it day in and day out.
Yeah.
And I don't have to know them. I have men that reach out to me and say, "Hey, look, I just need to unpack this." And as I said, I have the capacity, because what I've done is I've created a space by opening it up and offering you my vulnerability as a gift.
Mm.
I've
Yep.
offered that to you, and not
Yep.
personally to you, but I have freely given it.
Yep.
So it creates a space of safety for another man to say, "Can I offer mine to you in hopes that you would receive this in care, with
Mm-hmm.
safety, and
Yeah.
not make me feel less of a man, not judge me." And that's what more men need. They need the space where men allow them, honestly, the space, period. Because
Yeah.
sometimes I say, even if you don't have a man, there are so many men that don't have that safe space with their wives or their women,
Yep.
but they need that space, period, to just be able to say, "I failed today. I felt like less of a man
Or
today."
even navigate and learn from different men. How did you get to a point where you can be vulnerable. You know what I mean? Receiving information on how to navigate that same thing that other men are going through.
Yeah. No, true. Well, and vulnerability starts with just, like I said, it's a gift. It's offering something that you're afraid to hand over. It's offering something and talking about something that you still feel shameful about. You still feel guilt about. So you hold on to it. Intimacy is just allowing a person to see into you. That's all it is. And it's not it's a relationship thing. No, I can be intimate with guys that are in my circle. I can be intimate with you guys by letting you see what's inside and offering that with my vulnerability to you.
Yeah.
And in that space, that allows you to go back and say, okay, I feel comfortable telling him, you know, what I'm dealing with right now, what I'm ashamed of, and I'm still trying to work through, in hopes that he can allow me to work through the shame and guilt that I'm feeling about this.
Yeah.
Because I feel like most humans I see are perfect. Why am I not perfect? But the truth is that we're all imperfect. And it's not until you start to unpack that I can say, bro, I deal with that too. I'm dealing with that now.
Yep.
So wait, you too? Yeah, bro. Yeah, you're not by yourself.
Yeah.
This is something that I did recently that surprised me. You know, like I was talking to my younger brother the other day, and I don't know what prompted the question, but I was just like, "Hey, man, do you struggle with imposter syndrome at all?" And he was just like, "All the time." And I said, "Word, me too." And like it was just like it didn't go super far. Like it was just like a 5-10 minute conversation, but still it was just like, all right, cool. I know I'm not the only one sitting here just like I'm not sure if I belong here. Or I'm not the only one sitting here just like I'm not okay. You know, it's me, and I know it's at least one other person, or it's at least two other people. And you know, just it's it like, even though it didn't fix anything, it didn't solve anything, no, you know, no angels came down and alighted on anybody's head or anything like that. It was just like, all right, I feel a little lighter. I
You feel
feel
seen now.
exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like, all right, cool. There's at least one other person who knows where my head is at a little bit, even if they don't know the whole picture.
And
And
I
it's
feel
my
like
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No.
You made a good point to where, and I've known this about Jay, where and I feel like it's very common. I feel like we as men, we don't like to speak out or ask certain questions because we're gonna feel like we're misunderstood. You know, we're misunderstood in a lot of the way we feel, the way we can articulate certain feelings and emotions. And it made me realize you saying that, and it made me feel like all you did was ask one question. Right? Do you feel this way? Oh yeah, I've been through that. I've done that. You know, I feel this way about it. You know what I mean? And that's how it would prompts different conversations. But go ahead, Robert.
No, I was gonna, and I'll pick up from where you're saying. Yeah, it's a space of where not only you feel seen, but as my mentor, a guy named Reggie Bean, used to tell me, it creates the Me Too movement, where you're now like, wait, so you too? Like, and I video on that where there are so many men out here that are aligned with you, that are going through the same thing. It just requires one person to say, hey, look, anybody dealing with imposter syndrome, or anybody dealing with this problem that I'm seeing, or this problem I'm having in my relationship? Oh yeah, me too. Okay, so wait, all of y'all? Okay, so now I feel seen. Let's talk about it then. So it opens up the space to talk about it outside of just, we normally talk sports, but like, let's talk about this though. Like, because not so much that I'm looking for advice, but I'm just trying to understand how you guys are navigating it, what you guys are doing in it. And it may not work for me, but it still makes me feel like, all right, I'm not by myself on this. I feel encouraged right now just in that. So yeah.
So we're gonna go right into our wrap it up session. What that basically is, man, we're giving our guests 3 to 5 minutes to you know, speak to our audience, give some gems. So Mr. Robert Moore, man, you've got the floor, sir.
Wow. Well, man, I did not come with a freestyle, so I'm I feel like you're gonna have to drop a really good beat that I can bob my head to right now. But like,
Yeah.
but like,
Drop a
no,
mixtape.
I would definitely say that, I first of all, I appreciate you gentlemen allowing me to join in your conversation today.
Yeah.
This is what, as I tell people, this is what therapy looks like.
Yeah.
This is sometimes for some people, this is a good start to therapy. Sitting down and having conversations with men outside of what we normally converse about. So I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to join you to do that. Outside of that, I'm not really here to promote myself. I tell people normally when I step into a space, I'm here to share God's love with others. I'm here to share the love that he's given me to others in form of whether it be conversation, whether it be creating a space where you can feel seen, where you can feel loved, where you can feel understood. I understand how a lot of people, like you said earlier, they're so worried about being misunderstood. It's okay to be misunderstood. That's perfectly fine. The truth is that shouldn't stop you from talking about things just because most of the people you talk to misunderstand you. Don't shy away from who you are, what you've been, because you're worried about being misunderstood. Because I can understand how on the journey I'm on right now, I could probably be misunderstood and confused and sound a little crazy to some people, but it's my journey and I have to understand it. I don't need the validation of others because I'm learning how to validate myself and how to grow in what God has allowed me to understand, the assignments he's given me. And so on this journey, sometimes it can feel really lonely. It can feel really kind of like there may be moments where it's like you feel like you're isolated away. But those are moments where I can sit with myself to kind of understand what I have been holding on to, what I have not been able to release, what has not allowed me to walk into other seasons of my life because I am constantly sitting in this season because I'm holding on to everything that's around me. A lot of us want to grow. A lot of us want to move forward into our purpose. I would say that, I didn't find my purpose. I found careers. I found family. I found, finances. I found all those things, but truly tapping into what my purpose was in life, I didn't find that till I went to the person who actually created me. And I'm not talking about my parents, because for a lot of us, our parents didn't even plan us. We were surprised, but like regardless, going back to my creator, my father, my heavenly father, to understand what his plan was for me and understand what his plan was, period, in my life, turning away from my own plan because my plan kept having me running into dead end after like no fulfillment there, after receiving this and feeling empty still. It was allowing myself to understand what his plan for me was, allowing him to be able to speak into me and show me who I am outside of who I had seen myself to be. Dying to, which is why my name on Instagram is Rob_no more. I don't think I've ever explained this to anybody. I just changed it a long time ago, in that I could no longer be Rob. Rob had to die. So I am Rob no more. I had to let, some of the patterns that he had, some of the struggles and the trauma that held him captive. I had to deal with that stuff, and I had to walk away from this ego and that persona of who Rob was, how he provided and protected me in a past season. And so it was moving into another season that allowed me to understand how God saw me outside of how I'd seen myself. So I pray that every man, woman, child that's listening to this podcast today can find that in themselves, can reach that. And yeah, it's not a step-by-step process. I'm not offering any classes. I'm not a coach or anything. I'm just someone here that I truly believe that God has a greater plan for us all, that it's in the work we do on our own mental health that allows us to be free from what we have been dealing with, what we have been holding on, what has held us captive to the peace that we can't find, to the happiness that we can't enjoy. So yeah, I just hope, I pray for that for every one of your listeners as well as my listeners regularly, just hoping that people can get to that space where they can thrive in life and not just cope through life.
Yeah. Wow. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. Let us know, man, if a lot of our audience, a lot of our men out there are having this issue with finding peace, issue with, we spoke about identity and ego and finding your vision, being a people pleaser. Let us know, man. And a great analogy, Robert made was, this is kind of like that first step of therapy. That's very true. Also, make sure you guys, follow him at Rob_no more. When he told us that story of why it's called that, man, I can relate to that. In the symbolism behind that, man. A father, bold believer in Jesus Christ, man, as you can hear and hear his passion in the word and in the worship meditation. Mental health advocate. And make sure you guys, check out his podcast, God's Glory in Men's Real Stories. Make sure the link is going to be in his Instagram right up top there. Can't miss it. Make sure you guys also follow Let's Rock Podcast on Instagram. We're everywhere right now. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe to the YouTube. Follow us on Instagram. That link is also in the description. Robert Moore is also his handles and social is going to be also be in the description. Make sure you guys follow him. Great content. You got anything to add, Jay, before we end this?
Nah, just a thank you to you for coming on, dropping the wisdom that you've dropped, and for listening to the calling God has given you to share what you are sharing with people. Like really appreciate you taking the time, man. Really appreciate you taking the time and considering us, and really thank you for that. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube, all our socials, man. We're going to continue this journey, continue, talking to our men. And I know a lot of our brothers are going through this, man. Like Robert said earlier, man, if you have a issue, man, you don't have nobody to talk to, come talk to us, man. We'll definitely listen, hit our DMs. If you want to be on a guest in the show, we'll definitely get you up here. Hit us up in the comments, man. So I'm Philosophical from Let's Rock Podcast. Jay Echo.
We out, y'all. Peace.
Take it easy.
Man, appreciate you guys having me. Shout out to y'all, man. And I'm happy to be here, man.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here, man. You guys are doing amazing things.
Good, man. We doing good. I see you guys looking great.
Well, I appreciate y'all for having me out, taking y'all time and promoting positive Black image.